All right, here we go. This is the webinar on how to become a tekom speaker. And like we've just said, we are recording. If you want to stay anonymous, please use the chat and turn off your mic and video. But you're welcome to stay online with sound and camera if you will. We have 3 presenters today, only 2 right now. With us is Anna Duarte. Hi, Anna. Good to see you again.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you too.
We've invited Anna because she's done last year what some of you might want to do this year, namely be a first-time presenter at a tekom conference. Anna was brave enough to simply submit a topic. We loved it. We invited her in. And Anna also opted to get support from the conference board so she would know a little better how the entire experience goes. And let me just mute everybody else. There you go. Okay. We had a little bit of audio on the line. That's why I muted everybody. So Anna submitted a session. We loved it. We picked it up. And then she also opted for some support so we could talk a little bit about how does the conference go. And this is why she's here today, because in a way, she's a year ahead of you. Maybe some of you want to do this year what Anna's done last year, and we've invited Anna to share her experiences. A little later, Maiken Block will also join us. She's a member of the tekom conference board and also a board member of tekom Denmark. And so she's one of the people who selects the sessions. And I'm also one of the people who selects the sessions. And Maiken and we can tell you about how the conference board actually evaluates the sessions and maybe has a couple of questions before we accept and so on. All right. And with that, we have a little bit of an agenda. And this is what we'll talk about today. First, we'll talk about how do I find a topic to present. And I'm going to ask Anna how she found her topic and what made her think of this and what made her want to submit that as a possible session. Then we'll talk about the process of how do I submit a session. That's essentially a sequence of 3 screenshots so you know what information we want to ask you about and how to fill it in and what's important and what's less important. Then number 3, what does the conference board do once you've submitted a proposal? How do we evaluate that and how do we select the sessions? Number 4, what support can you get before the session and during the conference itself? And number 5, what's in it for you? How do you benefit from presenting? You know, why should I even bother? And that's essentially the running order. So how do I find a topic to present? There's several ways, and we'll talk about them. But to make this a little more interactive and a little more tangible, I'd like to start by asking Anna, what did you submit? And even more importantly, how did you think of that? How did you find your topic?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. So, how did I find the topic? By looking at this slide, I'd say a bit of the 3. But if I had to pick one, I would pick number 2 for sure. So basically, I had the idea of participation in this conference because I had already participated as a speaker in other international and national conferences, but this was my first time presenting a project. It was a first time in a conference that was super specific to for technical writers. So basically, more than showing what I was doing in terms of teaching, I wanted to get feedback and to get validation. So it was a bit easy for me to select a topic because I wanted some kind of validation from the other attendees and also from the board, of course, because if they would select it, it would mean that I was doing something right, at least from my perspective. So yeah, this is what I did. I took the project I work on, the documentation I manage, because I work, I manage the documentation, the developer documentation on my own. So it's not so easy to get feedback. So yeah, this one was a no-brainer. I just thought, okay, so I'll take them. my documentation, my processes, my methodology, and let's see what they think and go from there.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And that is exactly how a lot of the presentations and the proposals do get started. So you said you essentially did a lot of number two, you look at how you work at a project you've done or just your processes and describe that. I also want to highlight a feature of what you just said. You do that on your own. And I know that some people think, well, I'm basically just a lone writer. I'm just the only person doing what I do. And surely a lot of the people at the conference, they are in larger teams. And why should I, as the lone writer, present something? But that's actually also a very good idea because there are more people who face exactly these challenges even if they are maybe three writers, but it's still a single person who does all the developer documentation. So one piece of advice, one encouragement is that even if you think, whatever I do, it's too small, it's probably not because it still works. Even if you're the only person doing what you're doing, that could still be a good idea to present on because ultimately, like Anna said, she does it by herself. And that doesn't mean it doesn't scale up. It doesn't matter if you're one person, three persons. The, the lessons that you brought to the session are equally valuable. So let me go over the other 2 points. I sort of grouped them in super easy, easy, and also interesting, which means maybe not always easy for number three. But super easy is if you see a presentation, whether it's at a TCOM conference, in another conference, or just on YouTube, or if you read or see anything somewhere and you find it interesting and think, huh, we do something similar, or I do this a little differently, but maybe it's not all that different. That is already a good idea to consider as a conference topic. So don't be shy just because you see something similar. For two reasons. The differences are still interesting and instructive, and you might put a very individual spin on it that the first person you've seen didn't have. Number two, wherever you've seen it is not the conference where you will be presenting. So if you've seen a YouTube video, chances are most people at a TCOM conference haven't seen that. If you presented last year at TCOM, chances are most people who will attend your session have actually not seen last year's presentation, either because they weren't even there, or maybe they will skip yours and see another one, but they missed the one last year. So if it's a variant, a variation of something that has been in a TCOM conference, that in itself is not a reason not to submit it. So if you just get inspired by what you've seen other people do at TCOM or elsewhere, that's a totally good idea. Um, the good thing is if it has appeared at TCOM, usually you can tick some of the boxes I'll talk about later, like what is a valuable proposal. Then the second one we've been over. Anna talked about her processes, and that's always good. Very often you could think about a migration project, where you migrate contents or you migrate between tools, or maybe you've changed your project. You've had a change project where you changed processes or you've changed the setup. Um, and then lastly, you can think about anything that has a value beyond the technical writing people themselves. So, if you can impress your manager or if you can impress the head of development, or if you can impress customer service people by something you do, that's always a good idea. It it is a little more lifting mentally. You have to think a little harder. Okay, well, what does impress a manager outside of technical writers? And that could be, for example, stuff how you improve key performance indicators of the documentation, how you optimize the collaboration, how you make life easier on customer support, how you can have self-help tickets where you have less efforts in customer support or stuff like that. So um, I think the topics themselves are rather easy, especially if you sort of start with the first two. And this would be a good point to stop for questions and comments. So if you're wondering, would X be a decent topic? You know, if you just wanted to jot half a sentence in the chat or just speak up, now would be good just to talk about a couple of examples if you have anything at all. You know, just so we can go around it. And we've done this at the spring conference in Würzburg a couple of weeks ago. And that was actually very insightful because we had one person say, oh, well, I'm a lone writer. I pretty much do everything. And it just, you know, I have this large toolbox and I need to juggle all the balls, keep all the balls in the air at one time. And I said, yeah, but that's pretty much what I did in my very first presentation was how to get ahead as a lone writer. And I basically just shared my toolbox and that's all it was. And we pretty much developed that into a topic right there. So anyone have a question, a comment, an idea for a topic they want to float, and we can just take a look at it. That's fine too. And if you think about something later, we can always return to it. All right. So how do you submit a session? There's a link up here, TC World Conference, tekom, DE, call for papers. And that after a while, it doesn't lead directly to the screenshot I'm showing, but this is then where you submit the contribution. I want to talk about the main fields and not so much the entire process. The process isn't all that difficult. It's just a bunch of fields, really. But I just want to highlight some of the fields and say which are more important than others. So the previous contributions as a template, I haven't even mentioned that because chances are if you're submitting for the first time, you probably don't have that. And I don't see a lot of people using it, to be honest, but yeah, so feel free to skip that. The title itself, yeah, that's important because it lets everybody know what is your topic going to be. So this is also the title of your talk as it is going to be published. Oh, and Mike is coming in. Let me just admit her. Hi, Maiken. So Maiken's my co-presenter along with Anna. And Maiken, I've already briefly introduced you as a member of the conference board and the member of the tekom Denmark board. And yeah, we're sort of in mid-flight already, and I'll draw you in to share your impressions as a member of the
Feel free
conference
to do
board.
so.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
very
you for
much.
being here.
Anytime.
So we were just in the middle of how do I submit a session? Yes, the title is very important because that is the headline. That is the title of your session going to be. So, you know, think about it twice, but come up with a nice title here. The next important field is the type of contribution. And there are 6 options that you can see here. Presentation, workshop, tutorial, partner presentation, meetup, and showcase. These are different. And if you don't know which to pick, or if you forget what I'm about to say, just choose presentation. The reason is that if the conference board likes the rest of your contribution, we can always adjust the type of contribution. If you get it wrong, it doesn't really matter because we'll sort it out together. You know, if you can't think of anything else, select presentation. A workshop means that you will have like 20 to 30 people or what is it, 90 minutes, 105 minutes, and you lead them in a group activity. So a workshop needs some interactive component in it. If you're thinking about leading a session for the very first time, it's unlikely you will be doing a workshop unless you've already done something very similar elsewhere. A tutorial is essentially a long presentation where you present a long workflow usually. You show how to do stuff. So think of a tutorial as a longer presentation. Again, if you're unsure, just select presentation. A partner presentation is if you have a technical communicator and somebody from the industry in the same presentation. You have two presenters, one for the professional angle and one for the angle of the customer, of the user, of whoever benefits. Um, Again, if you have a partner, if you have a client, a customer who you want to bring to the session, this is your format, your type of contribution. If you don't know what that is, select presentation. A meetup is very different. A meetup is usually 60 minutes where you have no fixed agenda and you just meet with whoever you want to meet around a topic and have a discussion. Usually, if you suggest a meetup, it means that you will facilitate this thing, that session. You can also ask a question. I'll come up with an example. I'm supposed to work in an agile setting all of a sudden. I have no idea how agile works. I find it hard to get official, reliable guidance, and I just want to hear how do other people work in agile. You could call for a meetup. It will be your session to facilitate, and then you just lead the discussion and hear what other people are doing, what issues they face, what solutions they found, and so on. So it's different. You don't really present, but you facilitate a group discussion, and hopefully everybody has a good time and walks away with some learning, some lessons learned. Um, a showcase is a really rare type of contribution, and that is usually something invited by TCOM. So for the sake of simplicity, I would just discard that. That basically means that you're comparing several scenarios, and yeah, it doesn't really happen a lot, so I would just sort of skip that here. Any questions or comments about the type of contributions at this point?
Yes, I have a question. Um, my name is Cecilia, and I'm working in a company in the technical documentation department.
Hmm.
And we are now currently developing a project with a master student.
Ah, yeah,
And I was thinking, I was asking her if she would consider to present the project. Would
excellent.
that be a partner presentation or more a presentation?
It would be a presentation because the partner in your case is not from the industry.
Well, she would, if she would be the one presenting,
Yes.
and we are the industrial party because
Oh,
we are a
oh,
company.
I'm
We are
sorry.
not,
Yes,
we are a company. We have a
yes.
technical documentation
Okay.
department, and she is now developing a project for her
Okay.
master thesis. But I'm not
Yes.
sure. So that's why
Yeah.
usually, I think usually there is a company and another company in the technical documentation
Mm. Yeah.
area and collaborating with one
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
And in our case, there is our company
Yes.
and
Yes.
a master student working
Mm.
with us to develop
Yes.
her
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's my misunderstanding. I just somehow didn't catch on that you were sort of the partner in this case. Um, yes, it sounds like a partner presentation, but ultimately pick either one
Mhm,
because
mhm.
whether it gets accepted doesn't depend on this selection.
Okay, okay,
Either one is fine. But I
okay.
very much welcome this. I think this is
Yeah,
a great idea because we're always interested to hear from partners in the industry on the one hand, and we're also always interested to hear from academics, like master
yeah,
students, like up and coming people.
yeah.
So this is a perfect combination, and I would very much encourage you to submit that, and pick either one, and we'll sort it out. But it just sounds like an
Okay.
exciting topic.
I'm
So
working
thank you.
on it, and I hope
Yes,
also to be able to.
yes,
Thank you.
very good. You're welcome. Um, while I see the chat, we have one question here. Can we bring a subject related to a migration project, even if the project is still not agreed and we still have doubts? Um, yes. Um, yes, do bring the subject, just make it clear. It's almost more important what you will present as opposed to how far you have gotten by the time you present it. So yes, even if the project is still not agreed, you can bring it forward and say, this is what we want to do, and this is why we want to do it, and this is why we're fighting for it. And here are the doubts. In fact, Sarah O'Keefe, who speaks at TC World a lot, she sometimes says, oh, we have all these success stories. How about the train wrecks? Because these tend to be more instructive. And I don't want to say that that particular migration project will be a train wreck. I hope it's not. But to talk about the doubts, that is also valuable if you want to do that. Because maybe you have somebody in the audience who has had exactly the same doubts, and then you can talk about it as part of the Q&A. It depends very much on you, but again, I want to encourage you to bring forth this particular submission, and then we can figure out together um, what do you present, and do you want to also float the doubts? Do you want to talk about them? Is that appropriate? Is that going to be helpful? But in my experience, people benefit a lot simply from learning during the session and the question and answers especially. And if you choose to have 10, maybe even 15 minutes of Q&A, that could be helpful to address some of these doubts if you want to do that. And now I've talked so much that we have two people raising their hands and I can't even see who they are.
I have a comment to this, Kai, with some examples. Maybe that can help a little bit.
Hmm?
So at the conference we had in Copenhagen last year, we had a Finnish tech writer coming in presenting, we are doing this change in our company. So she told about the decision the decision process they sort of went through from saying, this is how our documentation is written today. This is where we want to go. How do we get there? So she presented the entire process of sort of getting to that, you can say, decision of, I want to change from this system to this system. I want to make these changes in the style guide. I want to have this in my content, or nah, maybe not all of it, but this is a good element. I want that in the future as well. And this year she will come and present how far has she then gotten in the whole transformation process. So it can also turn into a series of presentations. You don't need to have everything in the first session.
Very good point. Yes, we see that every once in a while that, you know, you had a session and then the next year it turns out that was part one and here is part two. And it's almost like, oh yeah, let's hear how it went on, you know, almost like the cliffhanger of your favorite TV series.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes they come and say, okay, this was the plan I presented to you last year and that didn't really add up. This is what actually happened.
Yes, yes, very good. We have a question or a comment from Valentin, please.
Yes. Hello, I have the following question. What if there are two people from one company? Is this a partner presentation or is it a presentation? And
it's probably
who submits
a presentation.
The proposal?
Yeah, it's probably a presentation if it's from the same company. Usually a partner presentation has, say, a technical communication provider plus a client from the industry. That's the usual setup. This is why that particular type of contribution, a partner presentation, was invented. But again, if you can't make up your mind, select presentation. And if we then see, oh, this is a partner presentation, we'll just change it. But it will not count against you. It just will just make it work wherever it fits.
Okay. Thank you. Do you submit the names or is just one of the team submits?
Actually, you will need to submit all of the people who speak. So that would be one or two most of the time. Very rarely we'll have three people, but that's kind of unusual. So yes, please, both of them with the biographies too, so we know who's going to speak.
Okay.
I think Kai, there is a limitation to two people, but if you're three people, I think you can add it in the description text or structure somewhere, telling us that actually we are three people, and then we'll talk and see how that can work.
But you'll sort of need a reason for being three. It's like whatever you want to present should somehow fit into the brains of two people. Yes. Yes, and then we have Mr. Lokasoft. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, and I just have to read who I see. So. Yes, we have a question from somebody who's who's shown as Project Management Locasoft. I know it's our French colleague, and you're muted.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought I was number 2. Yeah.
Yes, but we already talked to Valentin, so that's good.
Okay. Yeah, I have a general question. Is it better to hold the speech in English or German?
Whichever you're more comfortable with.
Yeah, but it's also important for the public. I mean, if there are, let's say, 99% of English-speaking people and only 1% speaks German,
Yes.
it might be better English, but
And it in for
otherwise.
both languages.
Yeah, that's just going to confuse us, Maiken.
Well, we had a few last year who actually did the same talk in both German and English.
Yeah, okay.
And we are especially looking for English-speaking presentations. At least that's my hidden agenda. Well, it's not hidden. Everybody knows that I'm looking for English-speaking contributions because we know that we will always get a lot of German-speaking ones. We are struggling a bit on the English-speaking side. So if you feel comfortable doing it in English, I would recommend you to do so. I would encourage you to do so. So we can also build a very strong English program.
I will also say that we get the conference board gets to see the comments by past attendees. And for last year's conference, I do remember seeing some comments that asked for more content in English. I don't remember seeing any comments that asked for more content in German. So apparently German was deemed sufficient, but English maybe not. So that would also underscore what Maiken just said. Yes. All right. I'll just continue swiftly about the thematic area that is sort of hidden here, and I didn't even expand that because I'm just listing 5 here. The thematic area, that is like 25 different selections you have there, and it includes stuff like content creation and videos and UX and software documentation and translation and terminology and a whole bunch of other stuff. The reason I don't want to talk about this in detail is to invite you to pick one that you think fits. But even more than with the type of contribution, what you select does not improve or hurt your chances of being accepted. It is sort of your self-selected grouping where you think it fits in. So if you think this is software documentation, fine. If you can't decide because it's software documentation on the one hand, but also content creation on the other hand, pick one of the two. It ultimately doesn't matter, and it's more like a tag that the audience then can use to find stuff that interests them. But most of the audience goes by the title anyway. So, yes, please pick something. Please pick a thematic area, but don't sweat it. Just pick whatever fits best. And sometimes the conference board will say, we think we want to regroup it, and that's fine too. So this does not hurt your chances of being accepted. All right. Oh, wait, I think there was a comment coming in. Yes.
It was just Heike speaking.
Okay. Yes, who's actually also on the conference board. Yes. So, part 2. These are actually probably the 3 most important parts. What are you presenting? And that tells your audience why they should come to see you speak, to see you present. This is going to be published in the conference program. So this is where you talk to the audience. This is what my talk is going to be about. So this is very important. And yes, you can be a little advertisee. So you make the people come to your talk. This is your chance to advertise your session to your audience. So it's important and it's public. The takeaways is also published. It's also to your audience so they can have a couple of bullet points. What do I learn? After I hear this talk, I know how to contribute with agile teams. I know what a definition of done is in agile terms and so on. These first 2, they're going to be published. So they are your chance to describe your session to the audience. Then there's a third field called structure. This is your storyline, your argument, what sort of the sequence. What's the story of your session going to be? This is different. This is only for the evaluation by us in the conference board, and it's not published. And it's the combination of the three that is the most important criteria for the conference board to evaluate your contribution. Sometimes we have people who simply take the first field, what are you presenting, and they copy it into the third field of the structure. Well, of course, technically you can do that, but it doesn't help us in the conference board because then we still only have your advertisement and we don't actually understand what you're trying to do. So yes, please make sure that you do all three fields justice. What are you presenting? Advertise to your audience. Takeaways. What are the lessons learned to your audience? The first two are published. And then the structure, that's for the conference board. So we understand what you're trying to do. If you want to tease and not give away everything, you can do so in the first two parts. If you tease in the structure in the third part, you're giving us a hard time because then we have no idea what you're trying to do. Teasing in the third part is not recommended. And now we have a question. Which outline format is popular, very detailed or cryptic, because of mass of applications they have to read? So I answer this for the third field, the structure. I think the conference board most of all appreciates clarity. It doesn't need to be detailed, but it needs to be clear. Cryptic, if we find we have to argue how you meant it, it's giving us a hard time. If it's clear, that's good. If it's detailed, it's also good because sometimes then we can say, that looks a little much for 45 minutes. And we'll come back and say, are you sure you can do that in 45 minutes, especially if you want Q&A? So detailed, if you want to. Cryptic, please don't. But by all means, be clear and be structured. Make sure that we can see the argument, the story, you know, where do you start? Where do you end up? That is the gist. It's the storyline. Almost like if you want to pitch a movie, you know, pretend like we're the producers. We're supposed to give you money to create a movie. You know, what is your storyline going to be? Is it good if it also shows what is learned in the individual points? Yeah, you can do that. I mean, usually it sort of is implicit, and most of the conference board, you'll always have the conference board is actually 15 people strong, so chances are that at least a third or half will know about your general area, and we can understand what that is. So again, clear is more important than being very detailed. And then which topics are in focus? That is on the website. So if you make your way to this form, there's a page that tells you what the topics are. And from technical editors, yes, that's also good. Even though I'm not sure that there are any topics in particular demand from technical editors, but seeing that technical editing is simply a part of what a lot of the tech writers do, that's also good. And yes, we do have technical editing sessions every once in a while. It's probably a handful or so, but I think most of the conferences have technical editing somewhere. Yes. All right. And then, oh yes. So here are some more fields for you to fill in, and this is the last of the sequence
can I add a
slides.
comment
Yes.
first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I talked right over you. I'm sorry.
No worries. I saw that someone beat me to it, but there's a link in the chat to the actual topics. And
very
there
good.
are so many topics in there. So it would take us too long to go through now. I don't know, Kai, did you mention earlier how many people usually attend the conference?
Nope. The conference, I believe, is somewhere between 2,000 and 2,400 for the tekom TC World Annual Conference in Stuttgart. And then there are a lot more who attend the trade fair, but the conference itself are around that number, 2,000 to 2,400. And I think we usually have like 7 to 10 tracks in parallel. So again, that speaks to the enormous breadth, the enormous variety of topics covered, and technical editing is certainly among them.
Exactly. And so it was just to give you also an idea of how many people will actually be at the conference.
Yeah.
And for the individual talks, I think you may expect at least 30, 40 people. That's when it's a small crowd, and then it might also be bigger, just so you know. But don't be nervous. They're all very nice.
There are sessions that have like 15, but that's also good because I'd rather have 15 who really pay attention than half of them who would just sleep away the time. So
yeah. And as for the structure,
yes.
Sorry, Kai, I'm just meddling in here. As for the structure, I just wanted to let you know that we received somewhere between 300 and 500 proposals. So the more specific and clear you can be, the better. Then it makes our life so much easier.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And then we have a comment or questions from Svetoslav, please.
Hi, everyone. Going back to the topic of topics, I have a question about a specific topic I didn't see in the list of topics here. It's more towards career development. I've submitted a workshop for the evolution of technical communication that's coming in June. And it's about creating a technical writing portfolio with Doxus Code tooling. I wanted to ask if this is a topic that would be of interest for the TC world also. It's in the form of a workshop.
Yes, so docs as code, definitely. Workshops, definitely. Please submit it so we understand where the interactive part is in it. It's very important to remember that in a workshop, you'll have 20 or 30 people sitting there, and you have them for a little over an hour and a half, and around half of the time, they are supposed to do something hands-on.
Yeah, sure. My idea is to like guide them through the process of actually creating a portfolio.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So just be specific what they are supposed to do in a workshop. That's also that's always the question we're asking. What are the people going to do? If you can describe that, you're solid. Yes, you're good.
Sure. Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. And yes. Okay. We're going to get to the next question that asks about beginners, advanced, and experts. So let me just fast forward here. Yes, and it's right in the next one. So the next field you can select as experience level, and there are 3 options: entry level, professionals, and experts. This is mainly to have a rough estimate. You know, is this something where somebody can attend and understand and take away something when they've been in the profession for a year? Or do they need to be hardcore experts in a very specific field? I don't know. I'm gonna show you a trick to do subtitles in videos, and you pretty much need to be an expert in videos. That is where that becomes important. The experience level you select does not affect your chances of being accepted. Sometimes we'll want to adjust it. Sometimes we might say, we don't really understand why this would be an expert. We'll bounce it down to professionals, or we'll think this sounds a little complicated from the structure, so we're going to bounce it up from entry level to professionals. But what you select will not change your chances of being accepted. We do try to have a distribution, so we have entry level, professionals, and experts, but it's not your job to make that work because like Maiken said, we have hundreds of submissions and it evens out. So yeah, it's going to work out. Yes, how many session suggestions are submitted each year and how many of them are accepted? 500 is a lot. I don't think I've ever seen that. I think that the most I've seen is a total of around 380 or so. And let me see. I think around half of those 380 got accepted. And I think that is approximately the ratio. I don't think we ever accepted fewer than half, sometimes a little more, depending, if the quality is good, then we'll go a little higher, then we'll have 60, maybe 70%. But I think as a general guideline, 50 to 60%. So, if you just wanted to play the statistics, if you submit 2 sessions, you probably have a good chance, unless they're both terrible. And we'll talk about what is a terrible submission. Yeah, language of contribution, pick one of the two. If you, actually, sometimes we do then get a comment, that the same session can also be held in the other language if that is more appropriate. So you could also do that. Then there's the field for prior knowledge. That is more in conjunction with the professionals and especially the experts. You don't need to write down, you need to know about technical documentation or communication. This is more like you need, I don't know, experience with videos, or you need experience with managing, or you need experience with some project management skills, stuff like that. If you're unsure, just put it in there and we'll take a look at it. Yes, and so it's more if you think people will have a hard time to follow the session because you simply make you simply expect them to know certain things, like I say, project management or something. It's a little similar with the technic and room requirements. So yes, you will have a big screen. Yes, you will have a cable to connect your standard laptop. Yes, you will have a microphone. And yeah, just put down something that you need. One thing you may think is self-understood, but please put it in anywhere. Anyway, if you need a good internet connection because you need to show a movie or you need to access something out on the internet, please put that in there so we can figure out how to make that work, because it's not always a given. And lastly, this tiny checkbox down there, I'm a speaker for the first time and I'm pleased about support. Please ignore the somewhat quirky phrasing, but this checkbox is your best friend. If you've never presented, this is where you want to go, because this is when we'll note that one of us from the conference board gets in touch with you if we accept the session, and then we can talk about how we can best support you. And then there's the question of selecting a submission, and we'll get to that on the next slide. But let me first ask if there are any more questions around this slide.
I have a comment, Kai, to what you said before about what we put in the prior knowledge section. So let's say you want to run a workshop on a practical appliance of XML data writing.
Yeah.
So then you probably expect people to know about data and the rules and how you structure data information, right?
Yes.
That you should put in here.
Yes,
just
exactly.
to help them know. So you don't come there as a brand new writer and you sit there for almost 2 hours like, okay, what me?
Yeah, that's totally right. Yes, exactly. That's a very good example. Also in a workshop, if you expect people to do something, and if they need like an open source tool or something, then they must install it and they must be, somewhat fluent in it, because else they're just going to sit there. So then we have the question, what are the jury's criteria for selecting? And this is exactly on this slide here. So in terms of the topics, we look very wide. We don't really, we're not narrow, but we look for new topics. We look for new presenters. We look for academic topics. We look for bread and butter topics. We look for innovative topics. We look for really boring topics like topic-based authoring. Maybe you think, yes, everybody's done that for 10 years. If you are passionate about it, or if you have a good way of doing that, please submit it, because there's always people who haven't done this for 10 years. So it's more important that the topic is relevant for you, because trust me, with the 15 people on the conference board, even I don't know what they think is relevant. And if there are 15 people, there will always be 2 who find whatever you're suggesting very relevant. So if you're passionate, if you have something to say, please feel free to submit it. Whoops. Then that said, we evaluate your contribution mainly by the topic, so that's the title, by the takeaways, the 3 bullets, and by the structure. So we do look at the argument, at the storyline, at what is this, you know? I'm thinking in terms of, would I then want to attend that if I was a new writer, if I was a seasoned writer, you know, is that something interesting? And we score your contribution by the topic. Is that going to be interesting? By the expected quality. If you've spoken at TCOM or TC World in the past, we also look at that. What scores and what ratings have you gotten? And if it's ad-free. Now, the ad-free bit, that's usually very interesting to most people who submit. So let me unpack that. What does that mean? Ad-free means that we will not take sessions where you advertise a product or a service because it is the best thing since sliced bread and it's the only product who can do X. And you talk about how wonderful that product is because it can do X. That is going to be difficult. We will not really accept that. But of course, you will use a product and you will mention it. But the way we expect that you do that is that you say, okay, I have this process here. I want to show you how to put subtitles on a video. And to show you, I will have to use a tool. I happen to use tool X. There are other tools who can do the same, maybe a little better, maybe a little worse, but I just happen to show you this process with tool X because I have to use a tool. So that's perfectly fine, but please don't overdo it and say, oh, but X is so wonderful. My coffee tastes better since I use X. What is a bread and butter topic? That was just a shortcut for a topic where you might think, oh, but this is boring. You know, everybody knows this. Even if you think everybody knows this, if you're passionate about it, still consider suggesting it. Are very individual projects interesting? Or is the special one just in demand? It kind of depends. So the project can be very individual, but there should be some way for the audience to find it applicable. You can be as specific as you want. Maybe the particular product that you document, you're documenting it and that's it, because it's the only product in the world who does that, and nobody will ever write a similar documentation for a similar product because there are no other products. That is fine. But your general audience still needs to find a way to make it applicable to their work. If I sit there and I realize after 5 minutes, this is so specific, there's no way I can transfer what you're showing me to my job. That's going to be difficult. So it depends where the individual is. If it's a very specific individual example, that's fine, but we need some kind of general applicability. Let me first go through the reasons for rejecting a contribution, what we don't take. We will not accept contributions that have no value for technical communicators, translators, terminologists, and UX designers, and people like that, because these are the core audience. Actually, we don't even have a lot of managers. So if you're very specifically targeting managers of technical communicators, translators, terminologists, please make sure that it's also relevant for technical communicators, translators, terminologists, etc. Your contribution will have a hard time if we cannot find a value for the core audience of the conference. We will reject it if it's an advertising, if it's a sales pitch. We will reject it if we find it impossible to understand. We've had submissions where the 15 people all looked at it and said, nope, I don't know what that is. I simply don't understand it. And this the last bullet probably does not apply to you when you apply for the first time, but we will limit the number of sessions per person to around 3. Sometimes there's an exception, and to around to around 2 sessions per person, and to around 3 sessions per company, just so we keep a balance and we don't have people complaining, ooh, but company X, they had 5 presentations, did they pay the conference board? So we try to keep a balance here, but most likely if you're just thinking about submitting a single session, that's not going to be a problem. And a couple of more questions. Thank you for all the questions. This is what I'd hoped for, that we have lots of them. We thought about presenting our documentation migration project, why we went this way, what we experienced, and the benefits we have now. To what extent can we make a tool comparison here so that is still okay? Interesting. So the first part before the tool presentation, perfect. I think what you can do by all means is to sort of classify the tools, and I will make a sort of a very blunt example. Suppose you did your documentation with Word first, and then you got another tool which was not Word. And then you could say, well, we tried with word processing. In fact, we used Microsoft Word. That was our example before. And then we had this migration project. And now we use, and I'm making things up, we use a help authoring tool, and we just happen to use Flare. You can do similar things in RoboHelp or in AuthorIt. And this is why we went away from word processing, and this is why we went towards a help authoring tool. That is perfectly legitimate because you're showing why you've chosen a help authoring tool over a word processor. If during the Q&A somebody says, how about this? And you say, oh, actually, we like the glossary function in Flare. That's fine, but just don't make it sound like you want people to go out and buy Flare. That's going to be a problem. But if you just talk about the features sort of in a very straight and neutral sense, and you can even say, oh, we chose Flare because we liked the interface, because we had a writer who already knew how to use it. That's perfectly fine. Is it better to show a very small manageable project or rather a big picture? That depends on what you want to tell us. Either one is totally legitimate and can be a very good session. If your emphasis, if your story is the big picture, how your company can save a lot of money, then by all means go for the big picture. If you want to show how a single writer can actually do a project by themselves, then show a small manageable project. It depends what your storyline is. One isn't necessarily better than the other. And I'm very much aware we're running out of time, so let me fast forward. Briefly, you can get the tech support you need, so you can clarify the requirements beforehand. And on the day of the session, there's technical staff there to help you set up. And there's even speaker support in the form of a tekom webinar, how to structure and run a good presentation. So that's all there. That's part of the package, and it's advertised on the tekom website. Now, about this individual checkbox, where I said this is your best friend, this is where a conference board member answers your questions. And this is where I very much would love if Anna could tell us how she experienced that. We happen to do that together. And I want to invite Anna to share, was that helpful? What kind of questions did I answer? Did that help you prepare for the presentation?
Yeah, so what I liked about your organization is that everything was seamless, no bureaucracy, no, okay, you have questions, we can schedule a call with the agenda. No, if I had any question, I would know exactly who I should contact, because a great thing that you designated 2 people to help. One person, which was you, Kai, to help me specifically with the presentation, and another person to help me, which was you, Ting, with the logistics. So this was super helpful. I knew that I could contact them anytime with any question, and they would respond quickly and in a very helpful way. So this was very helpful to have these two direct contacts that I knew I could easily get in touch with and ask whatever I felt like I had questions or could be helpful to get their feedback in advance. So, but regarding the presentation, it was very helpful to have Kai with me, because even when I didn't have, the first draft or the second draft, I could easily send one of these versions that was not the final version. This would help me get on the right track and meet the expectations of the conference and also of the attendees. And it was pretty seamless. Like I said, it was not like we had to schedule a specific day or a specific time or follow a structure or an agenda. The communication was direct, simple, concise, coherent, and it also gave me confidence. So I knew when I get there that I would very likely meet the expectations because I had this previous support. Also, it was very nice to have Kai there meeting me on the presentation day, even though it was a very early presentation. He went there to meet me and to make sure I was ready to go. So yeah, the support was great regarding logistics, and regarding the presentation itself, I couldn't ask for better support for sure.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes. I won't always be able to meet you on the day itself. It happened to work out in Anna's case, and I'm glad that you had such a good lead up and then ultimately a good session. So that's good. Just finally, and I can certainly stay on, but I realize that many of you will have to go. Briefly to summarize the benefits. Why should you even submit a session? Because you get to attend the conference for free. That's that's no slouch. That's quite a lot of money you're saving. Because you better understand your topic through the preparation and also through the Q&A that follows your session. Because it can help you grow personally. You get more self-confident as a speaker. You enhance your network because you get to present stuff you're passionate about to a whole bunch of people at the same time. Because one topic or one question or one idea leads to another, and who knows, maybe you'll have a part 2 and in the next year, and before you'll know it, you'll be an expert in this that you're suggested. So this already wraps up what I wanted to talk about in this hour today here, but everybody's certainly welcome to stay on, and we'll answer more questions, but I wanted to make sure that we get the gist of the session into this 1 hour. So thank you very much. And now it's basically free for all, and we'll have more time for comments and questions if you have them. Oh, well, maybe that's it then. I'll just stick around for a little bit longer, so you don't have to rush typing. Maiken, do you have any more comments? You haven't been on the conference board as long as I have, so maybe you have a bit of a newbie conference board.
I just started in the conference board, at least for the big conference, but I've been doing it for a couple of years for our Copenhagen conference. What I will say to everyone, don't be scared. If you're in doubt, you're not in doubt, just do it. Hand in your proposals, see if it takes, and then come and have a blast at the conference. I think I had those fears myself. Oh, will I be good enough? Do I know enough about this to actually present? And yes, you do. Consider yourself an expert in whatever topic that you add as a proposal, because whatever you speak about, there will be someone in the crowd who has no idea what's going on. They will have no knowledge whatsoever about what you're telling, but there will also be someone who can supplement what you're saying. I know when I have Kai in my sessions, he always brings in some different perspectives that I haven't thought about, because he has more experience than I have. And then it turns into, oh yeah, then what you just said, that sparked this in my mind. And then other people start asking different questions than maybe what I have anticipated. But then I also learned something along the way. So just do it, go ahead, spend some energy on writing a good proposal. And then when you get accepted, spend some energy in doing preparing a good presentation.
And remember the checkbox, your best friend.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, that sparked another idea. Oh yes, the audience in general, and I've been attending TCOM conferences for what, like I think 15 years now. the audience is very supportive. There are like every 3-4 years there is a contentious session where people argue and have a discussion, but it will not be yours, because these are the sessions where you can sort of see it coming, you know, because somebody has some argument to fight over, but that's not going to be your session. In general, the audience is very supportive. They are eager to learn. They understand that you are one of them, that we're among peers here, and that we're here to learn from one another. And I don't think I've ever had sort of a nasty Q&A, except when when you could see it coming, because somebody made a provocative session, and the people who came to see a provocative session were ready to be provoked. But that's not going to be your session if this is your first session.
Unless you add a very controversial proposal, then, but I don't think.
But then you know you have your work cut out for you, and then we'll probably simply ask, "Do you know what you're doing?" And then you'll assure us, "Yes, you know exactly what you're doing," and then you have a blast. That's good too.
Then you like bring a sword and a shield, and then you're ready, right?
Yeah. But no, in general, like 95% of the sessions, it's a very supportive audience, eager to learn and to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. Think about when you're at this conference, they are just like you. They have the same job. They have the same challenges. Some are worse than others, but it's the exact same situation people are in. Some work in teams, some work alone, some are consultants, some work in large companies, some work in small companies. Some of us have all the tasks, right? And in other cases, well, they are specialized teams doing whatever part of the tech writing, right? So the audience will be a good mix, but they will know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, we have no further questions. We have a lot of thank you. Oh, wait a minute. Here's one. I gave a talk at this year's spring conference, and I was asked whether and when I will repeat this talk. I could give the same talk in English at the autumn conference. Yes, by all means. And please add that you've been asked to repeat this. So we realize that. Yes, but by all means, it's there's no shame whatsoever. In fact, tekom loves to have to widen the audience and to bring a talk from one conference to a next one. Maybe people didn't attend this spring conference. Maybe they went to the wrong session because they now know they wanted actually to go to yours. They just didn't know it. So yes, by all means, do suggest it, and put a remark in that you've been asked to repeat this. And this is why you're resubmitting, and then we can pull it out. And this is totally legitimate and very often welcome. I will not give you a blank acceptance and say, yes, we will take it, but it's got a good chance.
And I will say recycling is good.
Oh yeah.
I mean, in so many ways.
Reuse, hey.
if you reuse your presentation from before, it means you have done it before, you know what you're talking about, and it will be a maybe easier experience for you. I think this year I'm speaking at, I don't know, 5 or 6 conferences. It's the same presentation. It's a little bit different angle depending on which audience I'm standing in front of, but it's the same talk. So my preparation time is not that high compared to if it was a brand new topic. So the first time I did it, I had a lot to prepare, but for the rest of the year, I mean, I can just lean back and enjoy my own show.
I'm sort of considering doing like Maiken, but I don't, because I get bored. Like if I do my same talk like for the 3rd time, it's like, no, I know what that is. I'd rather do something new. So, you know, it's different personalities.
And sometimes you pause your presentation for a couple of years. Somebody comes and asks you, okay, can you do a talk around this? Is it? Yeah, I have this one I can reuse. Oh, yes, please do.
Yeah, except then I will just update it, because like I say, I'm, you know, I don't, I don't like to step into the same river twice. There's like some mantra, you don't step into the same river twice. So, yeah. Okay, good. Well, thank you very much. It was so delightful. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the questions. This is the first time we're doing this in a webinar format, and I'm glad to see we had I think close to 40 people here. I'm glad to see that you found it helpful and encouraging, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of you present and especially submit sessions that we can pick out. That would be perfect. And if you have any further questions, you're welcome to ask Yuting. And if it's something that the conference board is able to answer, she'll forward it on to us. And yeah, and if nothing else, maybe I'll see you in Stuttgart in November. Thank you very much. And over to you, Yuting, for last words. Oh, and no, wait. And thank you, Anna. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your experience. And thank you, Maiken, for being here and sharing your experiences and ideas. Thank you both.
Anytime.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know,
Kai.
I can't
Thank you,
keep my
Anna
mouth
and
shut.
Maiken.
So, well.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I go to your sessions, because I'm the same. Yes, over to you, Yuting.